My classmate went missing 3 years ago. Today he uploaded a horrifying YouTube video. There was always something peculiar about Darren. He was the quiet kid in the class, the type of kid everyone would expect to keep a gun in their bag. Yet despite being at the same school as him for 8 years, I never could have predicted the disgusting secrets he was hiding. Darren was utterly ignored, not just by mean kids pretending not to see him, but by everyone, constantly. He was practically ignored right out of existence. This soon developed into more of a tradition than anything. Everyone knew not to talk to Darren, and at some point, he learned to stop trying to talk to us. Sometimes I would go days without even seeing him, despite his perfect attendance. I thought this was all just a harmless little joke, but I never could have guessed the horrifying reality this prank would lead to. After the pandemic in 2020, we switched to online learning, except Darren wasn't there, and that was when he went missing. For the next 3 years, I curiously wondered what had happened to Darren. That was until by sheer luck, I came across his YouTube channel. The video I had opened was entitled, Dialogues with Darren, Episode 2. It began to play, and after a moment of amazed disbelief, I realized the bony face filling the frame and staring back at me was Darren. He appeared to be set up in a dark, cluttered bedroom. Darren was sitting on a desk chair to the left of the screen, with an empty chair behind him to the right. Both chairs were angled towards the camera, and eerily lit by the only illumination in the room, Darren's computer screen. After another quick camera adjustment, Darren began a stuttery introduction of himself in a nervous fake television host voice. As he spoke, it occurred to me that until that moment, I had no idea what Darren's voice sounded like. Hi, this is Dialogues with Darren again. Today I've got another interview with Mookie, who you might remember from our first episode. Before we pick it up, can you give us a quick reintroduction, Mookie? I glanced down at the video info. His channel had 0 subscribers. This video had 1 view and no likes or comments. It appeared that I was the first person to have seen it. I glanced back at the video and grimaced in confusion. Darren appeared to be nodding along to something and was looking intently towards the empty chair, as though respectfully permitting someone to speak. After a moment, he looked back towards the camera. Well, I guess I can't disagree with that. So tell me, Mookie, if you weren't an imaginary friend, what other kind of work would you want to do? Again, he looked towards the chair and nodded along to silence. But after his last comment, everything clicked. Darren had made a kind of joke channel, the product of boredom and maybe the hope of being recognized for once, even if just by strangers online. As he began to ask his guest a follow-up question about aspirations for the future, I clicked out of the video and over to his channel homepage. I found the video amusing, so I left him a subscription and waited for his future uploads. 2 days later, I got my first notification. Dialogues with Darren has posted a new video. This video was with an imaginary friend named Juniper Smith. I waited until the evening and pulled out my phone in bed to watch it before going to sleep. It was the same deal as before, and I tried to piece together what he imagined the other side of his conversation to be. Thank you so much for coming on today, Miss Smith. I don't want to be rude, but I was wondering how you passed away. Darren said this last part with cautious politeness, as though he was asking someone terminally ill how much time left they had. Silence and respectful nodding. I'm so sorry to hear that. Was anyone able to figure out what happened? Darren seemed choked up by the silence that followed. That's awful. I'm so sorry, he croaked emotionally. Well, what has happened since then? This was followed by an unusually long silence of about 3 minutes, as Darren simply nodded towards the empty space next to him. I spent the time studying the empty chair, trying to detect even the slightest hint of something supernatural, but I couldn't discern anything. I practically had my nose pressed to my phone screen, watching the shadows of Darren's bedroom when his sudden speech made me start. Well, that's great. Helping little girls like that? It can't be easy after what happened to you, but you do it, and that's so great. I smiled, wondering how he came up with these stories, and whether there was a Word document somewhere on his computer that had the other side of these scripts written on it. I wanted to read them, if so. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you very much again for sharing your experiences, Miss Smith. I think that's all our time for today, but I wish you the best, and please take care. And with that, Darren smiled meekly towards the chair next to him, turned and scooched his own chair back up towards his computer, and as his hand reached out of frame, the video ended. I continued to watch Darren's videos as they rolled in. Whenever I got the alert, I would queue it up, watch the video before bed, then await the next one. It was by far the weirdest channel I had found on YouTube. His interviewees came to comprise an interesting cast of characters that included the Annette twins, the Rog, and the Gray Man, who, despite the sinister name, was a delightful guest who caused Darren to break his composure with gleeful laughter throughout the interview. So you mean that you can be anywhere? Silence, interrupted by unexpected laughter from Darren. Oh, so everything's gray? He asked, regaining himself a moment before bursting back into pitchy laughter, too contagious for even me to resist chuckling along with. Guess no one can accuse you of being without talents. He managed to get out from between his outbursts, wiping a tear from his eye. Looking down at the video info, I realized that the Gray Man was the first video for someone to see that wasn't me. The view counter read 3. I smiled to myself in the dark of my bedroom. After the gray man, a couple weeks went by before dialogues with Darren showed any more activity. Then, at around midnight on Friday, my phone screen lit up with an alert. Darren was live streaming. Having nothing better to do and intrigued with seeing Darren do his first live act, I quietly shut my bedroom door, flopped onto my bed, and opened the YouTube app on my phone. The title was Dialogues with Darren. No name available. Live. Darren was oriented on the left side of the screen. The empty chair was stationed on the right. He had already done his typical brief intro and was mid-sentence as the audio popped in. "So, you're the first to reach out to contact me first. Let's start with that. How did you hear about the show?" Then, for the first time in any of Darren's videos, I heard a response. A sound like the blade of a butcher knife being raked over steel broke the silence. The sound was pitchy and inconsistent, resonating as though it was simultaneously right in my ears and echoing from far away. I winced and attempted to turn the volume down, but the metallic tones remained just as loud as if I had done nothing. Darren appeared pained, but otherwise determined to politely carry on, and continued to maintain his shaky host persona. "That's certainly not what I expected," he said, leaving me wondering what the answer had been. "And might I ask, how were—" The metallic noise resumed, cutting off Darren. His face had turned from a look of pain to a look of agony. "Sorry, usually this works with me asking the guest questions and, Again the terrible scraping responded. I winced and tried to escape it by turning my phone to mute, but the noise continued, just as loud as if I'd done nothing. I was just about to swipe out of the video to make it stop, when I noticed that Darren was talking again on the live feed. I just couldn't hear his voice with the volume off. He looked panicked, and had shifted his body to be as far from the empty chair as possible. Concerned, I hurriedly turned my volume back up. "Well, of course I invited you. You have to invite someone to be on a show. How does that mean it's my fault?" Darren's voice was desperate. The harsh metallic noise resonated in response, and Darren's face somehow turned even paler with childlike despair. "No, that's not true. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want you to go away." Darren seemed to be attempting to get up from his chair but couldn't. It looked as if someone had placed an invisible weight across his narrow shoulders, too heavy for him to stand up beneath. The live feed began to pixelate, making it difficult to make out what was happening in the room through the distortion. And then, for the one and only time, the terrible metallic scraping became words to me. It felt like my ears were seeing the hidden picture in an abstract image, and for just a moment, I understood through the pain in my eardrums what it was saying to him. "You should not have brought me here. Now you will pay." I heard Darren let out a scream that started naturally before being digitally distorted by the worsening feed. The picture pixelated further before going black, the audio cut off, and then, in an instant, everything popped back into focus again, as if nothing I'd just seen had transpired. Darren's messy, dim room was empty. 2 chairs sat side by side, unoccupied, lit in the white-blue glow of the computer screen. I stared in disbelief at the now silent live feed, and then, abruptly, it ended. That was the end. I called the police that night and told them what happened, trying not to sound insane. I told them that Darren had disappeared during a live YouTube feed, that I had heard a scream, and I begged them to do a wellness check. Took down the information, but I don't think anything came of it. I could tell from the disingenuous tone of the officer on the phone that she thought the whole thing was some prank by a couple wannabe YouTube stars or something. It didn't help that when I went back to his YouTube page the next day, the account had been taken down. That same day, in a fit of despair, I tried to figure out how to contact Darren's family, intending to learn where he lived and visit. While Googling for information, I learned from an obituary from 2020 that Darren was an only child whose mother had passed away last December during lockdown. Darren had been alone in the house all that time. The police probably thought he was just a depressed runaway trying to go out on bang. To tell you the truth, I feel responsible for what happened. Everyone left Darren alone for so long that he became desperate, started talking to things that should never be talked to, things no one should talk to, and then one day, those things started talking back.